Greetings, System Failure listeners. Nate here and Brian over there. Brian, how are you doing this week?
I'm pretty good, Nate. How are you?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's the fall here. We got the leaves starting to turn. Football is back, which is wicked exciting. But
yeah, well, I was walking over to the Works Bakery to get a bagel this morning, and it does smell like fall.
Yeah.
And the feeling of football coming on at 1 o'clock here and on the East Coast. It's in the air.
Yeah, the sunlight is a little bit more horizontal. Like in the high summer, the sun is like straight up. It's always like straight up in the sky. But in the winter, you get a lot of those horizontal sun angles because the sun's at a much lower angle in the sky, or at least that's true at our latitude up here in Maine. So we got we've got that angled fall sun, the breeze in the air. I picked up a package of McIntosh Maine apples from the old Hannaford supermarket there.
How are those?
Nice and crunchy, just as usual. I always like to get one bag every fall and, munch them down delicious. So, yeah, it's a good feeling. Fall is in the air. I'm wicked excited. And on the newspaper this week, we see that the Federal Reserve, that venerable financial institution at the core of the American empire, has up and cut our target interest rate by 1/4 basis point. Interesting there, Brian?
Yes. I guess it's like pressure from the Donald.
Yeah. Well, there's two issues where we are flirting with, stagflation, like what we had in the 1970s, where like the Fed has this dual mandate to try to maintain certain employment targets and also maintain certain inflation targets. And we got issues in both camps, right? Normally the idea would be that if the economy is overheating and there's too much economic activity, and then prices will rise, as a result of that. And to avoid prices rising too fast, that is to avoid everyone having extra money to spend on things, the Fed will, raise interest rates, making the cost of borrowing more expensive. And in theory, that will cool down the economy and taper off inflation. But what it really does is it just lowers business activity. So essentially, we just hire or don't fire a bunch of workers whenever there's an inflation on. That's been the strategy since the inception of the Federal Reserve in 1913. And then, of course, if the economy is running too slowly and there's not enough, and there's not full employment, then the Fed can cut interest rates, making the cost of borrowing money cheaper. And in theory, a whole bunch of businesses that were not economically viable, under the old interest rate, under an older, higher interest rate, would then be viable under the new lower interest rate. And that's just what the thinking is here now. We've had some dismal jobs reports. You may have seen, I don't even know whether to believe these economic numbers anymore, but there's obviously the drama with the Donald firing the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics for giving out bad jobs reports. But we've had some eyebrow-raising jobs reports recently that show that hiring has slowed and even started to, and even layoffs have started. And so the Fed, I think, is trying to get ahead of a recession or a situation where there's not enough money in the economy for people to buy the goods and services they normally do. The snowball effect recession where, all the businesses are like, not as many people are buying our products, so we're going to have to fire a few of our employees to maintain profitability, and then that causes even fewer products to be bought in the broader economy. And so other companies are like, we're seeing less sales, we got to lay off some of our workers. You see that. That's the snowball effect the Fed is trying to head off at the pass with this interest rate cut.
Well, when they raised the interest rates, like after the COVID, I think is when they started, they drastically raised the interest rates, and it seems like the fundamentals of the economy haven't improved at all. We're just living on a dream and a prayer. Like, it must have been crazy, like when the Federal Reserve took interest, or took action, back in the 70s or something. You could be like, well, I can probably afford to buy a home someday. And now it's like some vaudevillian routine where, there's water is leaking through the dike, and, we're trying to gotta get it over here, but then you can't reach the one over there, and something like that.
Well, that's the little boy with his finger in the dike, or maybe multiple fingers, is a great image to describe what's happening here, Brian. You're exactly right. We're getting troubling jobs reports and troubling inflation reports at the same time. That is the stagflation of the 1970s. And you're right, Mr. Paul Volcker took over the Fed in the 70s and jacked up interest rates to 18% or something like that in an attempt to try to curtail the inflation of the 1970s, where famously soda went from being like a nickel to like $1, like a can of soda. And so that's it, right? The Fed is lowering interest rates, even though we're getting flashing of inflation, warning flashes from inflation measures, and inflation measures obviously also heavily convoluted and politicized. It doesn't count like the cost of living. There's a bunch of things about GDP, the way it's counted, right? Where it counts unearned income. It counts like if the bank jacks up your fees, and jacks up the interest rate on your credit card, well, that's counted towards GDP, as if it's like, the point here is that inflation numbers, they're monkeyed with for political reasons.
Just the one other thing I want to say is that when they raised interest rates like last time, like in 2021 or whatever, it seemed like, now also we were coming out of the COVID and printing a lot of money wildly and people not working. But it seemed like when they raised interest rates, like the price of everything went up and a lot of businesses closed. And I don't know if this is a hard-hitting economical view, but it seems like we incurred a bunch of pain when that happened to like have some kind of option to deal with the coming crisis in the future. And so now they're going to ease it off a little bit because like the real crisis is coming, or we're going to try to forestall the grander crisis. So this is going to make things seem better, and we've basically been suffering in the post-COVID era, right?
Yes. Do you remember on The Office when Dwight says that he can raise or lower his body temperature at will? And one of the other office characters is like, why would you want to raise your body temperature? And he's like, so I can lower it again. There's a piece of that's in the game the Fed plays with prevailing interest rates. It wouldn't do to get caught in a situation where you needed to cut rates to stimulate the economy, but you were already at zero, right? In the 2010s, there were periods when the European Central Bank was flirting with negative interest rates because of that very problem. They're already at zero. You can't really cut them anymore. So it is important that you have a little ammo in your magazine. From the Fed's perspective, you don't want rates to be at zero when you need to cut rates, right? So you need to be up at 4 or 5% in order to cut rates back down to, which is what's happening here. We're going from 4.25 down to 4. Or I guess we had been targeting, the Fed had been targeting an interest rate range between 4.25 and 4.5, and now we're between 4 and 4.25. So it's like a quarter point drop, but that's it. Inflation is on, and so we are cutting rates in a situation where there's already inflation on, and obviously, one cause of inflation is when there is a bunch of new money introduced to the economy. Like the ratio of dollars to goods and services changes, right? So you get some inflation there. But then there's also asset appreciation when you don't properly tax your rich and they go around buying assets because it's all they can do with their money because they're already consuming as much as they're already consuming at a frantic pace. So there's asset price inflation that is just your rich people have too much money and you haven't got a balanced tax system. So there's that. And then there's also supply and demand. And this was the real driver of inflation during COVID, right? If suddenly there's half as many BlackBerries on the market, well, then BlackBerries are going to go up in price. So there's there's different sources of inflation here, different sources of prices going up. But prices are going up again. You may have noticed, Brian, your grocery bill going up and drifting upwards and upwards over the past weeks and months. I certainly have. I am at the point now where I'm getting all my groceries from the Walmart, which is a great money. It's about as good as you can do a money saving. I recommend everyone if you get that Walmart Plus app, you can have you pay once a year. If you wait for the middle of the summer when Walmart Plus has their version of Amazon Prime deals, you can get the year's membership of Walmart Plus for like half price, is like $50. And then once you've got your Walmart Plus membership, then your local Walmart will deliver anything to your house for free. You're just paying the same price you would as if you went to the Walmart and picked stuff off the shelves, but they deliver it to your door. And the added good news is, last year when I started really buying my groceries from Walmart in earnest last year, trying to save every penny I can on groceries, and they had this 5% cashback credit card that I signed up for through Capital One, but then a month or two into it, Capital One and Walmart parted ways because Walmart said they weren't fulfilling their contractual obligations. So I'm excited to announce that a new Walmart 5% cashback credit card has just been launched from some shady fly-by-night credit card company I never heard of before, One Card or something like that. But if you Google Walmart Plus, you can find it. So I mean, I know that you, Brian, like to you like eschew online shopping, and you like, especially with like clothes, you like to limit yourself to only what's available in stock at the local mall that you can look at, versus having a much wider selection online, but you don't get that immediate gratification. And so similarly, when you order your groceries through Walmart Plus, you don't get to pick out your own produce. But you can return whatever produce they deliver that you don't like, and oftentimes they'll say no need to actually return the item you received. You can just you just throw it out or keep it, and we'll refund your card anyway. So between the other thing I do is I never leave a tip on the delivery. I used to drive for some of these when I was doing traveling in between. I would drive for like Shipt, some of these delivery apps. And you have a choice of taking the delivery or not, right? Like Walmart does not want to pay drivers as if they're actual employees. They want to pay drivers as if they're 1099 contractors, and not have to take care of their health care and all the other things that come with all the other liabilities that come with having a W-2 employee. So all the drivers are 1099 contractors. So the Walmart can't really order you to do anything. You can pick out the deliveries you want to take, and you can see beforehand if there's a tip or not a tip. So I always leave zero tip to try to get as cheap as possible, and then 5% cash back on top of that, and then returns on top of that. And then the latest, all the produce I buy that I don't eat, I end up just returning in the app, and 9 times out of 10, I don't have to go to the Walmart to return it. And then the other thing that's happened is you get 10% off your gas Exxon Mobil stations. But that little feature has not been working well in my app. And so every time it doesn't work at the gas station, I just pull up the Google chat and explain to the chat representative what's happened. I have a whole text block in my Google Keep app that I copy and paste into the Walmart chat. And they always send me a $10 coupon code of my next Walmart order for the trouble of having the app not work. So all of those things combined have made groceries as cheap as possible in this troubling environment of inflation. With the Fed cutting interest rates, we can't expect inflation to improve anytime soon. So it's good to have the old Walmart app on your side. So I recommend all the cheap system failure listeners out there, get yourself that Walmart Plus app, start shafting the drivers on the tip, get that 5% cashback credit card, stack every penny you can, because we're headed into economic hard times in all likelihood here.
All right. Well, those are some exciting strategies for negotiating our dystopian reality here.
Well, I've got another one, and also some bad news for you, Brian, on the money-saving front. I got an email the other day that the YouTube has busted us for using a Pakistani account to buy the YouTube Premium Family. So you may recall we split the cost of a year of a YouTube Premium Family membership back in like May or something like that, or April. And I use cheapsy.net, which is the service that they'll take over your account, they offer all kinds of the most popular services like ChatGPT and Photoshop, and in this case, YouTube Premium. YouTube Premium, of course, it comes with YouTube Music Premium, or YouTube Premium Music, or YouTube Music, the premium version, and it also comes with the YouTube Premium, which gets you the ad-free YouTube experience. So what I'm going to do here, starting on the 25th, Brian, we are losing access to YouTube Premium. It's hard times. But I think what I'm going to do is use YouTube Revanced, the app, and YouTube Music Revanced, the app for my phone. And I will show you how to download the app and install the G Suite, which spoofs your Google account, and use that to unlock the premium features in your YouTube and YouTube Music apps. So we'll move forward with some pirating, and we shan't pay, Brian?
All right.
Yeah. Well, the other money-saving tip I have for the system failure listeners in these trying times is if you can install a browser extension, then you needn't pay for streaming services. You can go to pstreams.net and watch any TV show or movie except WALL-E. For some reason, pstreams.net has every movie I've ever tried, has the most obscure titles. But it has all the other Pixar movies, but it doesn't have that one Pixar movie, WALL-E, about the robot in the dystopian future. I do not understand that, but pstreams.net is going to have everything you need. And then, of course, there's the illegal sports streams, so you can find them almost anywhere online. And that is the way I watch sports. Bet $5 per Red Sox, Patriots, or Bruins game. on DraftKings and watch the free broadcast. You can really get a lot of entertainment for no monthly subscription fees. So I've gotten my monthly subscriptions down to just car insurance, Google Fi, cell phone service, and the internet. That's it. I have to pay the monthly bill for the internet. Those are the only 3 recurring subscriptions on my credit card every month. And so that's the way I want it when the inflation is on in earnest.
All right. Yeah, I mean, just going on YouTube is like, the brain rot. But yeah. I guess the G Suite is not a bad way to do it.
Yeah, well, I can't really imagine paying. Well, I'll just go until, they shut this avenue down too. Hopefully after this podcast, Brian, I will show you how to install YouTube Revanced on your phone. You might just want to go with YouTube Music and not the YouTube app, but you can do the YouTube app too. It's up to you. I can show you how to do both. So anyway, yeah, that's a good money. These are my best money saving tips. So in other news this week, I actually went and watched a couple of movies. Tracy, the lovely Tracy and I went to see the Downton Abbey finale movie, like the final chapter, whatever. Downton Abbey movie. You know this movie, Brian. It's all about the transition of the British aristocracy from the old, it's like in the early 1900s. The show, I think, runs from 1912 to 1930.
Is this in, like, theaters?
Yeah. So I went to the theater and saw it, and I had a great laugh. So the idea... Trace and I went to the theater at in the afternoon, so it was like we were like the youngest people in there by 25, 30 years. A lot of older people in there watching, a lot of older women in there watching the movie. It's not like it's mostly this movie appeals to women, but I like to see the fashion, and the automobiles and the way they did things in 1930. But there was a certain moment where the one chick, she had gotten a divorce, right? And this is a mark of extreme and utter shame in, the British aristocracy, still as late as 1930. And so there was a certain scene where it came out that this woman had had a divorce in her past, and she got, ejected from a high society party where some of the royal family were going to show up, and they were like, "You can't be here. The royal family can't be in the presence of a divorced woman." And so this woman had to hide under a stairwell. The royals arriving, and she had to hide under a stairwell. I thought this was a hilarious scene, hiding from the royals because you got a divorce on your record. But what even more hilarious that one of the super old women that was there was just audibly shocked. Someone else in the audience was like, oh, all in a tizzy about the amount of shame being heaped on this woman. And I don't know, I was just thought it really added to the atmosphere of hilarity to me. I just thought it was a funny scene. It was meant to. I thought the scene was meant to be comedic. In the way that it's showing this ridiculous shaming of this woman, just by the dint of the fact that she's had a divorce, she gets all this has to be shunned from society.
The audience found it offensive, though, the very idea of shunning someone for being divorced.
Yes, yeah, it was just shocking the way these poor women were treated. But meanwhile, I was having a good laugh for myself, so it really added to the sense of comedy. So I enjoyed the film for that, and nothing else.
And so, which theater did you go to?
Oh, just the regular Apple cinemas. Remember the one I think the last time I was at this particular cinema was when you and I went there in 2013. To watch The Wolf of Wall Street in theaters, that theater over there, over in Westbrook. Yeah.
Well, I think we saw where did we see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Was that somewhere else? I feel like that's the last movie I saw in theaters, except for Alien Covenant, or the most recent one, which was terrible.
I thought we saw Once Upon a Time at the South Portland in the old Hoyts. I could be wrong though.
Maybe you're right. Well, anyway, were the seats wretched?
Well, no. This theater had only 3 rows. They had put the big seats in, the big comfy recliner seats. So there was only 3 rows in the entire theater. And so that tells you how big the seats were, how bulky, versus small. Well,
I feel like those recliners, they're really not that comfortable either. Or most of the time, there's just like a divot in them from where they've been sat in. Mm. There's a pathway already worn in. And so, I don't know. It leaves my back aching. Or I guess I haven't sat in those particular chairs. What you need is some kind of Tempur-Pedic, or they need massage chairs in there. That would be ideal.
Well, I did think that, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure they're using cheap memory foam or something, and that those seats will break down in due course. But when I think wretched movie theater seats, I think of the old plastic ones that just really were not, you and I are both 6'4", and you might be 6'5". I'm not sure if you'd call yourself 6'5", but we were both pretty tall, and the old style movie theater seats are non-commodious for gentlemen of our stature. That's for sure. Mm.
And then the other thing is what age would you have to be? Because if you were like really old, I think that the idea of divorce being offensive is like culturally normal because that's how it used to be.
Yeah.
And then if you're very young, I mean, I just don't. I mean, you've seen like shocking things on Twitter, Charlie Kirk being shot, and I mean, all manner of crazy things on World Star Hip Hop. I just can't imagine being offended by the idea of shaming someone for divorce. Like, what do your sensibilities have to be to be offended by this? And you know, well, maybe we. I mean, given the number of single parent households, maybe we should bring back the divorce shame to sound like a conservative talk radio.
Yeah, well, in a lot of ways, shame is an important. I understand it's a negative emotion, right? But negative emotions have like anger or pain, right? These have important functions to them, and shame is definitely one of these emotions that has an important function to it. Now, but that said, you don't want wall to wall shame. But you're exactly right. The age of the gasping woman in this movie here was definitely like 60s, right? So we're talking the baby boomer generation, the generation who brought us the magic of divorce. These guys, no one loves getting divorced more than that generation. Like divorce rates are down as those guys have gotten older. And of course, they skyrocketed as those guys were first getting married, in like the late 70s and early 80s. Yeah. It's funny that it wouldn't be the divorce that is shocking to the baby boomers set. It would be the shame involved with the divorce that's shocking, right? The divorce, no problem. Who hasn't got half a dozen divorces on their record and their resume by this point? So that was amusing. And I had another cinematic adventure over the past week, and this one I was much more disappointed with. Down in Jersey, it was recommended over the dinner table by unanimous decree that this movie Materialist was like an excellent movie. And it's about some broad in New York who is single and in her like 30s with the clock ticking, and it's about the chaos in the dating market that young people are confronted with today. And so, of course, in the movie, she's got like one super handsome poor guy and one super handsome rich guy she has to choose between, right? And you won't be shocked to learn, she eventually learns that, it's not the rich guy, it's the poor guy I should go for. But, so I didn't really love the movie. I thought it would have a much more profound statement on the realities of late-stage capitalism with respect to the dating market. It didn't really do that. It was just like, there's more important things than money was the big takeaway, not the economy is crushing. So how does capitalism affect the dating market? Well, there's a bunch of ways that it does. One is that the more that we take money from young people and turn it over to old people, like for example, down in Florida, there's a movement to remove property taxes, like whatever your property tax bill on your house is for old people down there, and all those white-haired snowbirds down in Florida. All right, the idea is we're going to remove the tax burden. They already capped the amount of property tax you're liable for if you have that homestead exemption down in Florida. And so, like, the idea that the older people are going to get a huge break on their property taxes in Florida, a state with no income tax, is really a massive distribution of wealth from young people to old people. And the capitalist system systematically, redistributes wealth from young to old to the point where people don't have the assets for family formation in their 20s or in their 30s anymore. The average age of the first-time home buyers is like above 40 now and hurtling towards 50. That is not a good sign. And it matches up precisely with what happened in the late stages of the Roman Empire, where their oligarchy made it utterly impossible for the regular working-class folks to afford to have a family. And the debates about divorce and about abortion were incandescent during the late Roman Empire, much like it is today. It's no coincidence. So it's interesting to see how capitalism is affecting the dating market. And there's one other big factor here that I haven't mentioned, and that is the dating apps, that most people, with the collapse of third spaces like churches, there's really no good way to meet people anymore. And the dating apps are the chief way that people think that they're able to accomplish this chief way that people arrive on the dating market. But the apps are a disaster. Well, first of all, they give you the impression of an infinite set of options, so you're always like, should I hold out for another better option or should I settle for what I've got? So it introduces that, but like the way that dating apps are designed, right, is going to be just like all the other apps, designed to maximize your time and attention, maximize the time you're on the app. So the people that run these dating apps, which is being quickly consolidated into just a few, major companies that own all the different dating apps, right? The end result is that they're incentivized to keep you on the app, and the worst thing they can do is match you up and have you live happily ever after with somebody. Then you'll be off the app for sure, at least in most cases. And so the dating apps themselves, I think, are just designed to farm attention and to keep you playing this game of futility instead of making you, finding your happily ever after. And so the whole scene is just convoluted and it's just a cratered, barren wasteland, the dating market, at least how it seems to a non-single guy like me who's paired up. And that's how it looks. I don't know. What do you think, Brian?
I can confirm.
You can confirm. Yeah, as a single guy, you confirm that it's a rocky wasteland out there.
Yeah. No, yeah, the dating apps are no bueno. Well, just our whole, being online in general is, not good.
Yeah. Yeah, we've not done a good job setting up our society for romantic encounters and for family formation and for marriage and children. We just made it utterly impossible.
Well, people are online instead of in communities, and so I don't know. Yeah, people are super worked up about Charlie Kirk one way or another, and people walking down the sidewalk the other way suspiciously. It's is this is this person some kind of MAGA person or are they a crazy a libtard? And it's pulling apart the social fabric.
Well, that's another extreme balkanization of the political discourse is also unfortunate because you're going to end up not being able to stand half the people on the dating apps. But I'd like to make it a hallowed refrain on this, the System Failure podcast, Brian, that we really want to emphasize that people are pulling the lever for the Donald and people are pulling the lever for Kamala because they are good people that think it's what's best for the country, right? Most people who are voting for the Donald, most people who are voting for Kamala, solid people. There's going to be 3 to 5% on each side who are nutters, who are lunatics or bad people pulling the lever from either party. But I see no reason to believe that the number of loonies pulling the lever for the right is greater in proportion, greater ratio than the loonies pulling the lever on the left. I think we just got to realize that most people who are voting are doing it because they're good people who want good things for this country. We got to keep that in mind. It's not like one half is bad and one half is good.
Well, I think the proportion is equal, but I think the proportion is growing as people succumb to this online monstrosity.
You mean to say more and more people are voting as a team, voting to make Team Red win or Team Blue win? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, the Donald in the COVID and in most recently the Charlie Kirk shooting has driven everyone crazy.
Well, we're going to have to, of course, talk more about the old Charlie Kirk shooting after the break, Brian. But before we do, I have just one more way to point out, one more way in which capitalism is driving us crazy to point out. Let me do that real quick, then we'll take a break, and then we'll embark on some Charlie Kirk discussion, eh?
Okay.
So I was reading the James Bond book Thunderball recently. Now, as you may recall, there was this I remember about 10 years ago, I remember hearing the piece on NPR. It came out that this landmark study from 1957 from Harvard University that had shown that had linked fat consumption of dietary fat to heart disease was a total fraud and had been bought off by the sugar concerns to implicate fat instead of sugar, right? So this is the idea here being that fat is what gives you heart attack. Eating fatty foods is what gives you heart attacks, which is something I believe most of my life. And I thought that I guess I had thought we always thought that. It was what was interesting to me about this book Thunderball, published in 1961, was that it says the scene is James Bond, of course, like he does at the beginning of every Bond story. He has to show up to M's office to receive his mission briefing. And in this instance, Bond's mission briefing is that his health report came back not so good because the man's smoking 60 cigarettes a day and getting hammered on, 60 to 70 proof liquor on the regular, downing half a bottle on the regular. And so Bond is being confronted by M to improve his health. He's being banished to this health club, in Sussex, where he's going to have to, rehabilitate and go off the booze and cigarettes and get better. But I just wanted to read this passage because it's very, very funny. And it shows that we've like always known this. And so the confusion that the delusion that I spent half my life laboring under, that fats are what cause health disease and we got to avoid the fats, is just totally specious. But so this was written in 1961, or published in 1961. And of course, it's worth noting that Mr. Ian Fleming died 3 years later in 64 of heart failure. So just keep that in mind. But here's one paragraph. M said severely, "That's just where you're making a big mistake, James. Taking medicine only suppresses those symptoms of yours. Medicine doesn't get to the root of the trouble, it only conceals it. The result is a more highly poisoned condition which may become chronic disease. All drugs are harmful to the system. Most of the food we eat, white bread with all the roughage removed, refined sugar with all the goodness machined out of it, pasteurized milk, which has had most of the vitamins boiled away, everything overcooked and denaturized. Why?" M reached into his pocket for his notebook and consulted it. "Do you know what our bread contains apart from a bit of overground flour?" M looked accusingly at Bond. "It contains large quantities of chalk, also benzol peroxide powder, chlorine gas, sal ammoniac, and aluminum." M put the notebook back into his pocket. "What do you think of that?" So anyway, it's a great, Thunderball's a great book. Very exciting. The movie is absolutely horrid. I tried to watch half an hour of it. I can't recommend anyone watch that movie, but the book is outstanding. And I was, that whole section at the beginning, all about like health concerns. You can just tell that Ian Fleming, getting to be long in the tooth, was worried about his health, and it's just interesting how how all that common sense stuff he wrote about back in the 1960s is just, we've had to like relearn it in the 2010s and 2020. So it just goes to show you the thick layer of corporate propaganda under which we labor every day of our lives. Hey, Brian?
Well, I guess to be fair, he didn't really specifically address the idea of like fats, being like, not bad for you, or like he addresses all these additives to bread as opposed to like, carbs kind of are being the issue.
That's true. They do kind of talk more about sugar, other parts in the book. There's 2 or 3 sections in Thunderball that are very health preachy, and it's just funny to note that Mr. Fleming must have really been feeling not so great. He must have been feeling under the weather, as he was only 3 years from his own expiration date, and he's writing this book.
That's that's interesting. I mean, also, it probably like wasn't common, or I don't know. Like, obviously, he's dying now and is preaching about how to live a healthy life. So I guess the knowledge was out there. It's unclear like how known it was like in the zeitgeist, but I guess the information was obviously available. But you can't go back and re-edit these books like you can on the internet. Yeah. So,
last note. Apparently, if you smoke 60 cigarettes a day and you go off the cigarettes, you'll get what's called a furry tongue. I had to look this up. This happens to Bond in his rehabilitation. You get this big, like it looks like hair, this big black buildup on your tongue. I mean, it's just shocking. I can't imagine what smoking 60 cigarettes a day would be like, and then to go through withdrawals and to have a hairy tongue.
So is that supposed to be like the chemicals coming out of your body?
Just so, yeah, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that is just concerning. I can't. Oh, man. Well, reading Thunderball made me want to redouble my own efforts to be healthy and not smoke anything or drink anything. Ugh.
All right, well, it sounds interesting. I'll have to get back to reading these James Bond books.
They're a cracking read. It's too bad the movies are embarrassing. Anyhow, what say you to a little break, Brian? When we get back, we'll talk some Charlie Kirk.
Okay.
And we're back. All right. Well, Brian, the other, I think it was about a week ago, I saw the Substack notification on my phone pop up from the Gray Zone. The Gray Zone is this media outlet that's, the editor is this man, Max Blumenthal. He's a solid journalist. Ryan Grimm of Breaking Points, I think, was a co-founder. I don't think he's the co-editor, but he's a muckety muck over there at the Gray Zone. Or is that Drop Site? I'm confused. I'm a bit confused, but now that I think about it, but the point is that Max Blumenthal released this article that details all of this, details this idea that there was a problem with Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA and the Israel lobby, and that he was being personally excoriated or hounded by the likes of, for example, billionaire Bill Ackman, a noted Zionist, and also like a generally unscrupulous fellow. I recall when this in 2000, in like April of 2000, when the stock market was crashing because all of the COVID closures and cancellations were rolling in.
2020.
What did I say?
2000.
Oh yeah, 2020. Yes, definitely. And I just remember Bill Ackman went on CNBC and he was like, "All hell is coming. You know, the pain is we finally done it." Jawboning down. You know, he was behind the scenes buying up all these stocks at at discount prices. So the man is kind of a sleazy sort of businessman kind of archetype. But I guess the story is that he was excoriating Charlie Kirk for acknowledging that what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. Because the issue here, of course, is that Mr. Kirk is on college campuses talking to 20-year-olds, and every 20-year-old, right or left, understands, believes that what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. And so that's making life a bit tough for old Charlie Kirk going around these college campuses trying to drum up support for the Republican Party when the Republican Party supports what they perceive to be a genocide, right? So you can see why Charlie Kirk, the man who's responsible for bringing in the sheaves, vis-a-vis the college set, is having some heartburn about what's going on in Israel. And I guess the intervention was to try to get him not to stop calling it a genocide and try to keep towing the Zionist AIPAC Israel party line, except for that wasn't work. So he was facing a serious issue here. He can't continue to recruit people to vote for the Donald if the Donald is complicit in this genocide in Gaza. So that was really interesting, and I was like taken in by this story. I was electrified by it. Candace Owens, the erstwhile Candace Owens, also on about this on her podcast. I've never listened to her podcast, but I just seen some clips or heard rumors that that's what she's on about these days.
Well, I don't think that Charlie Kirk has like come out and called what's going on in Israel like a genocide, but he has platformed Tucker Carlson and David Smith.
Yeah,
who certainly do say that.
I think that this meeting with Ackman was supposedly in response to the Turning Point USA event down in Miami that Smith and Tucker and Megyn Kelly were at, railing against what's going on in Gaza. But I believe it's true to say that Kirk had used the word genocide in the weeks leading up to his death. I believe I read that. Now you're making me not sure because I can't remember the specific context.
I don't know. I've obviously there's like this clip of him talking about Ben Shapiro as to whether what's going on in Israel is a genocide, and he's like raising the question. But
maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I don't think so, but maybe.
It seems to me that Charlie Kirk is this guy who does like going around to these college campuses and talking to kids. He's definitely like a Christian. He's like a conservative Christian through and through, but he like also believes in like the power of debate. And when he thought it was funny the way that South Park was lampooning him, which was they have Cartman. He's a master debater, and he's doing a Charlie Kirk impression. Yeah. And so, I don't know, like Charlie Kirk, he has like some really conservative Christian views, like being completely opposed to abortion, like we were talking about. But, some people are just really conservative Christian, but like ultimately, I think what matters is believing in like, debate as a way to solve things rather than, assassinations or just this idea that you can't talk to people who have conservative Christian views.
Yeah, that's the shocking thing about the Kirk assassination. So I was reading this this piece from Blumenthal and was electrified by it as mentioned, but then I felt cowed and shamed when I listened to Dave Smith's reaction, which was like, but the piece literally says there's no evidence that Israel was behind this. And I have to agree with Smith on this. The idea that the Israelis would assassinate Kirk for not properly towing the party line with respect to Zionism or the genocide in Gaza, boy, that is a huge conspiracy. You can get me on board with, the Bush administration or aspects of the shadow government had some idea 9/11 was coming, and use that, rather than prevent it, let it happen for convenient political purposes. I believe that about Pearl Harbor, and I believe that about American entry into World War I, and I believe that about American entry into the Spanish-American War, and I believe that about American entry into Vietnam. So it seems obvious. So I'm on board, but like the idea that the Israelis had to shoot down Charlie Kirk in public because he wouldn't toe the party line, because that seems like a big conspiracy. It's a lot, man. It's a lot to,
Well, like Netanyahu is coming on. He's had to make two separate statements saying that Israel didn't assassinate Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
And the reason he has to say that is because it's known that Charlie Kirk was like platforming Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson, and that his mind seems to have been changing on the topic of genocide in Gaza. And then, like in Netanyahu's statement, he's talking about how Charlie Kirk was invited out to Israel, like in the coming weeks. Although the story from like Max Blumenthal, or at least people in that camp, they're saying that he declined that invitation and that he declined funding, like from the aforementioned Bill Ackman, to the tune of like millions of dollars or so. And so they're trying to like put out this narrative that Charlie Kirk was, on board with the whole. Like they're trying to lump them in with him when it seems like that really wasn't the case. And you don't see like Ben Shapiro having debates with like Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith about the genocide in Gaza, which would really be like kind of the good faith thing to do. And that's like, the fact that Ben Shapiro doesn't do that kind of shows you that, he's some Mossad asset or something. If you really wanted to reach young people about the issue of Gaza, you would have Tucker Carlson on and Dave Smith to debate the matter and kind of get to the truth of it. And it's like, it's pretty weak to not do that.
I agree. That really shows that that Shapiro has got a thick layer of butter on one side of his bread. You're like, yeah, okay, dude. You're not even gonna, you're not even going to have contact with the people who disagree with you. That's just how you that is how you can just tell people are interested in propaganda and not in reality or truth or getting to the bottom of things. What do you think? Do you think there's any chance Israel is involved? Like, how conspiratorial are you feeling, Brian, about this whole affair?
I don't know. Like, I don't really want to say that Israel definitely did it. There's just two things that seem to be true. In that, one is that Charlie Kirk was open-minded or changing his mind about the Gaza issue. And then there's just some like weird things about the shooting, which there usually are.
There always are. Just be like So like, from the state, we will get an account of what happened. That's not ever. It's always laughable. From the 2017 Vegas shooting, to like Uvalde, to every time this happens, to the Butler, Pennsylvania shooting. There's just so many questions that things don't make sense. You just end up going, clearly things are being concealed. Clearly we're being lied to. Clearly we're being sold a version that doesn't quite fit reality. But we can only see the version and not reality itself.
I guess there's weird things for different reasons. Because there's like the text messages between this guy and I guess his trans lover or something. And the messages seem made up, or they talk about like the police car is like a squad car, which sounds like some kind of FBI lingo or what you would say if you're in the police. And but also maybe this is the guy trying to absolve his lover there of any responsibility in some kind of messages that they made up, or maybe some kind of crazy government thing. And then if you like watch the video, there's these people that are making signals like they're the third base coach, like right before the guy gets shot, which is really weird. And those are just some of the weird things. You could go down a crazy rabbit hole of things that seem weird about this shooting.
The one I like is that the closed camera video footage of him climbing off the roof. He is not in possession of a rifle, but the cops are like, well, okay, so the man discarded his rifle in the woods nearby, and the cops found it. Except for he's climbing down off the roof after the shooting with obviously empty-handed. You're like, okay, yeah. So just another odd artifact that comes up in all these shooting scenarios that you're like, this isn't. We're getting a story. They're covering something, but they're always covering something.
They found this picture of this guy at the Dairy Queen. Did you see that?
A picture of him?
Yeah, from some security footage at like 6. It's like at 6:30. I think the shooting happened at 12:30 on Saturday or something, and it's at 6:30. There's some security footage of the guy just. I don't know. He's just ordering some Dairy Queen, looking relaxed, but I don't really know what that means. I guess that's pretty. I guess if you were a cold-hearted killer, you might go and get some Dairy Queen after shooting Charlie Kirk in the neck.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like you're saying, none of this proves anything, but you have to notice all the odd inconsistencies. But even with all of this, so yeah, I think that there's two things going on. Well, there's the one thing where we never get the full story. There's the other thing where Kirk really was changing his, having to grapple with the Gaza question. That's like obviously a genocide, and all the young people can see it on TikTok. And so what is he supposed to do as the shepherd that's supposed to bring in all the sheep for the Republican Party? And then all this stuff with Ackman. There's just so many layers to the story. I don't know what to make of it, but at least the country hasn't devolved into violence in the week and a half since the Kirk shooting, so we can hang our hats on that, eh?
Yes.
Let's see. I'm given understand here, Brian, that you had some thoughts about going on Reddit and Twitter in the aftermath of this Charlie Kirk incident.
Yeah. Well, one thing is I did regrettably go. I mean, I guess I argued with some people on the Portland, Maine subreddit.
You did. How'd that go for you?
Well, one person was, I can't really, I don't remember the thread. I think it was, well, anyway, they made like a long list of, Charlie Kirk's offensive conservative opinions. Hang on, I've got it here. Let me just see how this went. Okay, yeah, and I said that, well, you could have debated these issues with Charlie Kirk, rather than celebrating his death. And they were like, where was I celebrating his death? And I was like, well, you could characterize this eulogy however you want, but on the most important issue of our time, the genocide in Gaza, Charlie Kirk was platforming critics. And then this other person was like, he was saying that he was a Zionist through and through, and I don't know, that platforming critics doesn't matter. And then I was saying how Netanyahu had to make two separate statements saying they didn't kill Charlie Kirk because he was the platforming of critics of Israel throw shade on the matter. Anyway, and then this other person was saying how it doesn't matter that Charlie Kirk got in these debates, you have to not talk to him because he's of like the other side, which is like insane. I mean, that's some like Ben Shapiro thinking that we were talking about before. Anyway, the whole point though is that, yeah, I think, the whole going on Reddit and Twitter and whatnot is a disaster, and it's getting like people killed and people have like crazy. The going online has to stop. The problem is that there's no other options, because we've lost our third spaces, and it's like hard to do the dating thing without going on these online apps. So I don't know what to do exactly.
Yes, and the mainstream media has totally abdicated even the faintest limp-wristed gesture towards responsibility in actual reporting. So we've got no mainstream media to comfort us if we go off the internet.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I just don't know quite what to do. I guess it's like read books and, study Kung Fu. I guess that's the plan. But the lesson from the Charlie Kirk shooting is that we really have to stop going on Reddit and Twitter. The problem is things will happen that are super compelling. Ian Carroll is going to have some debate with Ashton Forbes. Ashton Forbes is upset that Ian Carroll is sort of suggesting that Israel shot Charlie Kirk, or he's not buying the mainstream narrative. Ian Carroll's this famed conspiracy theorist. He's like a young person's Alex Jones, much more cogent, and didn't say anything crazy about Sandy Hook.
Yes.
But he talks about BlackRock a lot and whatnot. And how the food at the grocery stores is all owned by one company and is poison, things of that nature. But yeah, Ashton Forbes is upset about his line of inquiry. And of course, Ashton Forbes is the guy who's saying that Malaysian flight that went missing is the result of some kind of direct energy weapon. And apparently they're going to have some kind of debate. They've been beefing on Twitter over this. Or mostly Ashton Forbes is upset at Ian Carroll's, line of inquiry. And now they're going to have some kind of debate. And well, goddamn, you don't want to miss something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a similar sort of conundrum in my life. I do feel like the online spaces are the best place to pimp this podcast and the newsletter. And so I don't quite know, Reddit's a good place to do that, except for it is just a giant time suck. The people you were arguing with on the Portland, Maine subreddit were probably bots, right? You were probably arguing with someone's GPT that they whipped up, And it's
one of these accounts was a month old.
Yeah, you're just arguing with a chat GPT, and the idea is just create this incandescent debate that's a distraction from the class war that's on, and it's so easy to fall for it. And it's like it's like that classic Noam Chomsky line. We're going to allow a very narrow corridor of discussion, but just really, really wild discussion within that corridor, so that it keeps your attention. You don't notice how narrowly you're being channeled. And you must have suffered some serious downvotes for going against the bot.
The downvotes reigned in, man.
Yeah, well, it's like Charlie Kirk said about his South Park episode. It's a badge of honor.
Well, I mean, going on Reddit's not like a badge of honor, that's for sure.
Getting downvoted on Reddit sure is, but yes.
Yeah. Well, on Tucker not Tucker Carlson, Piers Morgan, they were having a post Charlie Kirk roundup, and Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks was on there, and then this liberal streamer guy, Destiny, was on there. And, Destiny, he's like the hard left to maybe Ben Shapiro or whatever's hard right, or Charlie Kirk's hard right. And, he's, on the right, you hear some Republican commentators saying that we've let the liberals run roughshod over us for too long. And then Destiny is on there basically saying the same thing on Piers Morgan's show to the, which is crazy because Charlie Kirk just got shot. But the opinion either way is, I don't know, just the left versus right argument is insane, basically, because it's a distraction from class consciousness, as you were saying.
Yeah.
But anyway, there was this post about the debate wherein someone pointed out they were showing Destiny's demeanor and be like, well, these are Adderall eyes, and you can just see in the conversation, like Anna Kasparian, they're like arguing about something, and his like eyes are shifting around. And at one point, she calls him out for about taking how much Adderall he's taking. And so, I mean, anyway, like going on Reddit and Twitter and whatnot, it begets like being doped up on Adderall.
Yeah. And
Destiny looks like he's like in bad shape, and he got booted from Twitch apparently for his celebrating of Charlie Kirk's death. Basically, is what I've seen. And so, anyway, that's what you want to not end up like. That guy looks like he's going through all kinds of crazy damnation, basically. And that's certainly what going on Reddit and Twitter will beget you. So, if you need motivation, try to find this debate with on Piers Morgan with Anna Kasparian and Destiny, and watch his wretched affect as he, succumbs to the insanity, the puppet show trotted out there by our reptilian overlords.
Yeah, he's getting consumed by it, eh?
Yep.
If you go on YouTube, there's all these old Terence McKenna lectures, the famed ethnobotanist Terence McKenna. The guy was the best lecturer I've ever heard. He's got a melodic and hypnotic sort of way of speaking that really draws you in and keeps your attention. But he's always talking about making the point. And these lectures are from like the 1980s through the 90s. So they're old. They're recorded on like a classic magnetic audio tape. But he's always talking about how TV is an example of a drug. Television is an example of a drug. A very 80s and 90s kind of example. But I mean, there's no question about it that like if you're stuck in a multi-day weed smoking bender, for example, right, what you're chasing is dopamine, right? Not really the THC, the tetrahydrocannabinoids. It's not that. It's the dopamine, really, that you're chasing. And I think it's the same is true if you're an alcoholic and you need a half a fifth of vodka, like Mr. Bond. You need a half a fifth. You need like a couple, dry martinis down the line
just to feel alive.
Yeah, it's really dopamine. The alcohol is not the proximate cause of the addictive behavior. It's the dopamine. And so to just echo T-Mac here, I totally agree. I think that Reddit and Twitter and the dating apps and notifications on your phone and short form videos and infinite lists that scroll infinitely instead of having to go to the next page of results by clicking on 2 and the third page of results by clicking on 3, just at infinite results. And I think that all of that works like a slot machine. Right, that's what people when you see those old people with their oxygen containers working the slot machines at Monhegan Sun down in Connecticut. Right, it's the dopamine they're addicted to, not the cash that sometimes comes out of the machine. And the variable reward is part of it. You never know on Reddit, am I going to get good responses to what I'm saying? Well, unless you're Brian on the Portland, Maine subreddit, when you can pretty much be assured the downvotes is coming your way. But yeah, it's dopamine, and so I do agree that you get caught in these dopamine seeking cycles on this. I think I went off Reddit from like February or March to like April or May this year. I did a retirement from Reddit, but then I had to go back on because it turned out to be a really good way to promote the podcast. But man, it sure does suck you in and lock you into these poisonous patterns of conversation and interaction with others. So I don't know, maybe the thing to do is to go on Reddit and avoid all politics. Even if you only subscribe to the football and the baseball and the hockey subreddits, though, you're still going to find the politics. It still leaches its way in. It still stains even the...
Well, it's just a quick click to R all if you're like at all bored from scrolling. There's nothing new fresh on R hockey. Yeah.
So I agree. I think it is definitely poisonous, and we ought to be better curators of our attention spans than at least I have been these past few months. Binging on Reddit. But you said it. Well, I think that's about it for this week's episode, Brian. What do you think?
That sounds good.
Yeah, out of topics here. I do usually at this juncture in the program, I usually invite all of you to join us over at systemfailure.org. There you can input your email address to receive the weekly essays written by yours truly directly in your email inbox each and every week. That way you'll never have to worry about missing them. Furthermore, if you'd like to get in touch with either Brian or myself, you can accomplish that tidy feat over on the About page. I will say that, Brian, I got a note on LinkedIn, of all places, from one of our listeners who wanted to meet up for coffee this past week. They were going to be up in Portland on business, and I did meet them, and it was great fun. When this person comes back to Portland for business, I'll surely meet with them again. So that was entertaining. It's nice to know we've got at least a few fanages out there, around the country who like to listen to our stylings on this very program, eh?
Nice.
Okay, well, that's it, folks. We will see you all. We'll be back with a regularly scheduled edition of the System Failure Podcast on Monday. We'll see you all then.
See ya.